This is Abe Freetanzer from Awards Watch, and I'm very pleased to be speaking with Misan Harriman and David Oyelowo about their short, The After. How are you both doing today?
Very well.
Great.
Misan, can you tell me about the origin of this story and how it came to become a film?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I finally got the confidence to try and become a filmmaker beyond a photographer. And I wanted to make something that was true to me. And it was impossible to ignore, really, that we've been through the mill, all of us, to use a very British term. We, post 2020, COVID, lockdown, George Floyd, I wasn't doing particularly well in terms of my own mental health. And I wanted to make something to recognize that, something that could be able to accompany us in the process of finding hope within our stories and healing within our journey.
What was the transition like going from photography to film? Did that surprise you at all?
The initial choice was uh scary, um because self-doubt is a thing and the imposter syndrome is a thing, but meeting David was the anchor. This is a gentleman that does not need to be doing any blooming short films, and the idea that he would even consider me was a revelation. And then, of course, Nikki Bentham, wonderful producing partner who had just finished making The Duke with Helen Mirren and Jim Broadbent, and Netflix really having the bold trust in allowing a story that is as unflinchingly raw as this to be put onto the screen.
David, what attracted you to doing this short film?
So Misan got a hold of me through Instagram. He DM'd me, and it's a miracle that that got to me because I never ever check, and I put that down to the divine in relation to us connecting. But I had been aware of his photographs. These were the bad and sad days of COVID, and we were all siloed and apart from each other. But it was also in the middle of the Black Lives Matter movement, having this very loud presence. And one of my primary entries into what was happening, certainly in the UK, was Misan's photography. And every single one of those images was telling a story. I was truly arrested by the images that I was seeing him taking. And so when I drew the line between the guy who had just DM'd me and the guys whose photographs had been having such a profound effect on me, I couldn't but pay attention. And he said that he was looking to um, tell stories with the moving image. And I just, the idea of being in the crosshairs of the person who was taking these photographs was very, very attractive to me, let alone he's British and Nigerian like me as well. So and he looks a bit like my dad. So that the symbiosis was endless, and that's how our conversation began.
What was the experience for you of being directed by a photographer?
I mean, if I didn't know he was a photographer, there would be no, I wouldn't be able to make that assessment. I was just being directed by someone with a high level of emotional intelligence who really knew where to put the camera and was very, very connected to the subject matter that we were exploring both thematically and literally. I had lost both of my parents in fairly quick succession, and so grief, which is a theme of this film, was something that was very present for me, something I was very much living through and wrestling with because it took shocking forms for me. My parents died within about 3 to 4 years of each other, and it was under different circumstances. And those different circumstances elicited different grieving processes. And so I was both scared and drawn to the film. And what really made me lean in is that I felt safe in Misan's hands. So above and beyond him being a photographer, I just I have to say, it's not every director you work with that has a high level of emotional intelligence. I know that may shock you, Abe, but it's actually more rare than it should be. So I felt very safe to explore this with Misan.
Wonderful. Have either of you received any surprising reactions from people who have seen the film?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yes. There've been lots of notable names, but for me, it's when I get, you know, one of the gentlemen that helped with that did the sound mix, who's a early 20s black male, say that he's it's the first time he's seen the vision of himself on the screen, or of his someone that looks like his father, maybe, right? Um, be utterly vulnerable, and it gave him strength to know that he didn't always have to be strong. It's in the letters and emails we've got from people, as you know, from Japan, Korea, Nicaragua, many countries in the Middle East, that the global language of the messaging that we've put out into the world is something I'm deeply proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything from you, David?
Yeah, I think the sheer amount of people who are going through more than they seem to be going through on the surface is what has taken me aback. We sort of know that intellectually, that has to be the case, but the fact that the film is allowing for people to express that. Myself and Miss Anne were at a screening of the film last night, and to a person, everyone had their own very private, at times secretive relationship with grief that they now felt able to express. And in the expression of it, there was sort of instant community, instant debunking of the shameful aspects around grief, because it is vulnerable making in a way that, unfortunately, especially in the West, we do a very, very bad job of processing grief, and it ends up manifesting in unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy bodies, unhealthy minds. And you could see and feel that people were in the process of a kind of healing by virtue of just being able to express. There's a lady last night who said, "I'm going through a grieving process right now." And we hugged each other, and I could tell it was medicine. And so that in and of itself is just one of a myriad of reactions I've seen. And at its best, that's what this medium can and does do.
Well, if you're one of the people who hasn't yet experienced The After, make sure to check it out on Netflix. Thank you so much, Misan and David. It was a pleasure meeting both of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Abe.